do my best. I'll take short breaths. Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, the 25th of May. Is that right? My name is Robert Cagnetta, and this is a meeting of the South Kingstown, Rhode Island Zoning Board of Review. Members present tonight are Thomas Daniels, our Vice Chairman, Mr. Rosen, Ms. Walsh, and Mr. Brown. Also present are Jamie Gorman, South Kingstown Building Zoning Official, Peter Squares, our South Kingstown Special Legal Counsel, good evening, and Jessica Spence, the Administrative Support Associate. This board is made up of 7 people, where 5 of us are regular voting members, and there are 5 of us required to be present to vote. And tonight we're going to have just the 5 of us here, and all of us will be voting. The applicants are here for a dimensional variance. This board is a quasi-judicial body created the South Kingstown Ordinance pursuant to state statutes. We don't follow strict rules of evidence. We operate in what we believe to be in a fair and equitable manner. We try to let everyone speak, unless they get carried away or are determined not to be relevant. So in the best interest of time, try to be brief and on point. We do our best not to argue and keep things civil, and we'll have the last petition. Well, there's only one petition here. Let's hope we finish before 10. When it's called, just come forward and spell your name for the record and say your name. Speak clearly so we can hear you. Then you'll be asked to take an oath to tell the truth, and then you can present your continuation, your petition, along with additional witnesses to testify in your support. We're going to ask questions, and after the petitioner describes their testimony, anyone else with questions can come forward. And you'll identify yourself, be sworn in, and then follow up with any questions from the board. We'll try to keep the conversation going between the board and whoever's at the podium, and then we'll try to redirect any questions back and forth. After all the testimony is given and before a vote is taken, we'll be asked to discuss the evidence presented as a board. We require 4 of the 5 voting members to vote in favor for this petition to pass. Board members will be asking a lot of questions, and there's a good reason. We can't just do anything we choose. There are rules to follow per our ordinance, so you have to give testimony that will allow your request to be approved. So for this dimensional variance, we're going to be looking for that the hardship is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or the structure, and it's not due to the general characteristics to the surrounding area. The hardship is not the result of any prior action on the applicant's part, that the granting of the variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area. This relief requested is the least relief necessary, and that you will demonstrate that the hardship to be suffered if the variance is not granted will amount to a more than an inconvenience. So tonight we have this continuation for James Meyer and Maureen Rooney. And Laura, you're going to come speak again. So please state your name and spell it.
Laura Krikorian. Oh, sorry, I don't need to raise my hand for that.
You can swear for yourself.
Laura Krikorian, architect, Laura Krekoриan.
And you continue to swear to the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I
swear to tell the truth, yes.
Okay. So do we want to read in the new... yeah, just because I printed it out, and of course I left it on my desk. I think just with anything that has been submitted since the last meeting, because that was already read into the record.
So yeah, so all the previous records are in record, obviously, and then we have a revised site plan, which is 1 page, was prepared by Amy Saunders, PLS, and dated May 16, 2022.
Okay. And that's it? No other correspondences, emails, anything like that? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have hard copies of that plan.
Great. I'd love a bigger one. And these are already marked as exhibits, so we don't need to.
I'll mark it as an exhibit, I just have it as supplemental right now, so.
I'm afraid to share. You have a copy? Yeah. Thank you. Oh, great. We're flush with it. So tell us what you guys did.
So with this site plan tonight, we have shifted the barn structure 20 feet north and 10 feet west to get it further away from the neighbors. We've also added a row of plantings between the barn and Windy Meadows Lane to allow for a green screen of plantings between the barn and the road. I really feel like it's important to recognize that this property is unique. It sits in the middle of open farmland. That's unique in it of itself. But it also has 2 gravel driveways on 2 sides of it, and that makes it a corner lot, and that is very unique. It has 2 front yards according to the zoning ordinance, and these both yards are being treated identically. They each have a 58-foot setback. But it's clear that the front is to the north. It has historically always been to the north. That is the front. And even in the zoning tables, the dimensional tables, they call the east property line a corner side. So that is recognized as different than a corner front. And we're just asking that the board recognize that and understand that it is a corner side property line. And we really feel that to be able to not only locate the barn where it works best on this property, but to locate it a little bit closer to that side property line would not only be an acceptable solution to this problem, but would also be in keeping with the spirit of the zoning ordinance.
Okay. Board members, questions relative to this new location? Concerns, ideas? I mean, it certainly seems like that you gave us what we were asking for, which is the diagram of the location of the plantings, how far back they're going to go, and then also setting back more than previously proposed. My question, this pedestrian area, access area, it's not meant for anything more than that? It's not going to be like a big gate there or something like that?
No, it would just be for walking through.
Okay.
A connection alongside the stone wall there.
Yep. So no intention, and the doors are the same? The
Yes.
design of the
The orientation of the barn is the same, with the doors facing to the west and the north. Also in this location, we're asking for a lesser variance request. It was a 38-foot request, now it's a 28-foot request, because we have shifted 10 feet to the west. We have shifted it further away from the side that was requiring the variance.
Okay. But you're asking for 30 now?
I'm sorry, yes, did I do the math wrong?
It's all right. No,
Well, 58.
You gave us round numbers, so
We're asking for a 30-foot side yard setback. We're required to have 58, so it would be a 28-foot variance, right? That's correct in the math. So we've reduced the request, is what I'm trying to say. We're not asking for as much as what we were asking for originally.
And there's still going to be the side door on the east side?
Yes, just a person door, yes.
With a sort of a dark sky compliant sort of fixture up there?
Sure. Yeah, it would only be a downlight if it is required to be there by code, but we would be willing to make it
Sure it has-
shine just down.
Going up,
Sure.
spotlight going
Nope.
sideways, anything like that?
Nope.
And on the front, is there any sort of lighting or proposed lighting based on your previous submittal? Or?
In terms of the north side?
Yeah, again, spotlights, things like that. I mean, there's might be less of a concern on that side, but
We hadn't planned for spotlights
okay.
that I can imagine, but possibly another downlight around the door opening.
I mean, I would think that side, you'd certainly want to have something that casts out a little bit more if you're pulling up at night. So I think if we're going to suggest anything, maybe just something for that east side.
I would think it may be on one side or the other of the overhead door because there is a window above that up in the gable, so any kind of lighting up in the gable wouldn't really happen well.
Well, okay.
So it would be on either side of the garage door, the overhead door, I would imagine.
Okay. So the intent
So that is
not to
down
have,
low.
Sort of a pole parking lot
No,
setup.
no, there will be no pole. Is that correct?
So some basically some sconce type lighting on either side.
Yes.
Board members, any other questions? Mr. Rosen?
Is there going to be any business activity associated with this barn?
No.
The last time you were here, there was quite a great deal of discussion associated with moving things around, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
You've come back with a design that's pretty much the same as it was before, except it's been shifted 10 feet to the west.
And 20 feet
Assume that
north.
there was considerable discussion among all the objectors and supporters, et cetera, over the past couple of weeks. Were there any other viable solutions that were offered that might have come forward, where you didn't have to come to this board and you would be in compliance?
There were several that we looked at, but none that would work as well as this option.
And how does this option work better than those, whatever they were?
Because it allows the barn to sit along the edge of the property and create an edge to the yard on the other side to give both the neighbors and the Meyer-Rooney family privacy in that yard. It also allows us to control how the barn is used in terms of facing the openings into the yard, that is the Meyer-Rooney yard, and not out towards the neighbors.
You're referring to the front.
I'm referring to
Or
the...
to the front, to the north.
The door on the north, yes, but also, and also very importantly, the door that faces into the Meyer-Rooney yard.
Okay.
Which is the west.
Remind me again of what's going into this barn.
A couple of cars, there are some canoes, yard equipment. It may be that Mr. Meyer could speak to that better than I, but it is a barn garage structure going to be used for storage and for cars and farm equipment.
And there's going to be one level, correct?
There is the level at grade that is a slab that you would pull your car into, and then there is a loft area above for storage, dry storage.
Dry storage. I don't know what dry storage is.
Clean, dry storage where you can store things safely.
Is this going to be associated with the farming operation at all?
I do
When I
not,
say dry storage, I mean it's going to be edible stuff.
no, it would be things that the family needs to store up there. It may be antiques. I don't know exactly what they'll be storing, but it's an attic space, basically.
An attic space.
Yes. The structure is only 20 feet tall, so at the peak is where you have clear headroom up there, and then the rafters slope down to the outside walls, so it's not a gigantic space.
Okay. And there's going to be steps that will be going up there so that you can retrieve
Exactly.
materials, I assume.
Yes.
That's all I
Is there any heat going in the building?
There was a wood stove proposed, but that was all.
Any plumbing?
No, we did not have water either. No, just electricity.
Any other questions?
No, I'm
Mr. Brown?
the parties got together and agreed on this plan that you submitted, new plan?
The plan was sent out to everyone in the family involved, yes.
We'll find out.
Thank you.
Ms. Walsh, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody else want to present anything? Come on up. Yeah, well, there's not many people here. And did you submit this?
No, I did not.
Okay. So Jessica, you'll mark this for us? Thank you. So please state your name and spell it.
Matthew Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R.
And you continue to swear the truth and nothing but the truth.
I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Please, go ahead.
So before I start, let me just say, here we are at the third meeting, and usually I'm quite comfortable presenting to large groups and audiences, but I find this particular situation quite challenging for lots of reasons. Given the dynamic, the history, it's been quite a ride. So let me start. I think the best way to do this is to walk through the standards of relief that the town of South Kingston and this board is to adhere to. And then what I did is I identified key areas in the standards of relief in yellow, so you can see those. And then I followed those up with some comments that I've italicized, typically in bullets. And before I get into that, I just want to state for the record, we have not heard or had any communication from the applicant's architect, or the applicant's civil engineer, or a third party on behalf of the applicant. We discovered this plan scenario today. We weren't going to the South Kingston website looking for an update. We expected, coming out of the last meeting, actually the first meeting, that there would be a collaborative effort to get to some point of reason. And that was what we were charged to do at the last meeting. No text message, no emails, no phone call.
Well, we'll find out. They mentioned they reached out to you, so we'll find out what happened.
Yeah, good. So as we go through the variance, the standards for relief, it says the board will require that evidence satisfying the following, and then I've highlighted, is due to the unique characteristics of the subject's land or structure. So this is a private right-of-way, a road in South Kingstown, and as I think about that situation across our town, I can think of numerous areas. Walden Way, Emerson Way, Forest Way, all private roads right down the street with corner lots. I can think of Bittersweet Farms. I can think of Genesee Way. I mean, the list just kind of goes on and on where these conditions exist.
Correct, but we're talking about this one in particular.
I know we're talking about this one,
right.
But it's, as far as I think, as the town goes, it is not a unique situation.
No,
when you
we've had these
consider
requests
the rest of
before.
this town.
We're just looking at this property
Understood.
now.
Understood. With me. So then we go on to, let me just keep going here, and not the general characteristics of the surrounding area. So we've heard numerous times that the general characteristics of the surrounding areas, including our pool house, is why this barn should be closer. The existing barn that was demolished is a reason why this barn should be closer. and that the neighborhood farm setting is a reason that the farm should be closer to the road. I'm not sure that those general characteristics are reasons that there should be relief of the variance. And then it goes on to say that the hardship is not the result of any prior action by the applicant. Well, this is a 2-acre site, and the applicant's actions have was the relocation of this existing barn that didn't exist on the property, which is 31.76 feet within a 40-foot setback. Just want to point out. And the applicant on the north side of their property installs the 2 stone walls that you can see that flank the garden area, north and south, east and west.
Okay, but I'm not quite sure. I mean, we have council or our
Well, in my
building inspector. Hang on a sec. Clarify what any prior action actually means.
Sure.
Is it because they box themselves in a quarter and they don't have any other way out? Is that what that means? Or
Excuse me.
yeah.
Any prior action of the applicant refers to an applicant that does something in violation of the town code, and then they can't then use that as a reason for their hardship to get relief. So the classic example of a self-created hardship is, I built it in the setback, and now it's going to be a hardship to tear it down. That's a self-created hardship. If they just use their property as permitted, as otherwise permitted, and as a result of that, they need to ask relief for another use, it's not disqualified as a self-created hardship. You just look at the hardship for that particular use, in this case the barn, and see if that meets all the other standards of relief.
Thank you. Hopefully that helps.
So carrying on that theme, in the previous meeting and documents submitted to the town, there are numerous locations that this barn could go on the property without the need of a variance. And we've been through that before. So then there's this other one that says, not as a result from any desire of the applicant to realize greater financial gain. But maybe you could explain what that means.
Sure.
Sure, please.
So, that requirement, obviously anytime you grant relief to allow an improvement of real property, it's going to increase the value of the property. So it's not that you can't have a more valuable property after getting relief. It's only that the motivation for the request can't be a desire to increase a financial gain that you would already be able to achieve without the relief. For instance, I guess the classic example is this: is if a developer is building a house and they can build a normal size house on the lot, but they can get a little bit more money for building a bigger house that needs relief. The fact that they can get a little bit more money for that other house is not a hardship that you can consider.
Got it.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, if the applicant is running a bed and breakfast in the residence, or they're renting a room to rent, which I think is a violation of the...
But that's not under consideration at this point, because there's no...
desire to move the barn and its landscaping activity as far away from the activity of bed and breakfast is beneficial to that business, where it's not an interruption to the guests and visitors that come to that bed and breakfast, which is not permitted by the town of South Kingstown, and puts the, let's not call it landscaping business, we'll call it landscaping activity, directly out of sight of their bed and breakfast.
Is that on this property?
It is. You can Google it on your mobile device.
Is it on this?
Yes.
property. Okay. Sure. Yep.
Those activities, as we've already conveyed, much closer to our residents. Matter of fact, the entrance to our home. So our position...
They can actually put it closer to your house than that is now. They can drop it south and go west.
South and 58 feet. You'd rather have it 58 feet?
Well, no, they can go south and west, and that'll be closer to your house than it is now, and be inside their setbacks.
We would prefer that, to have inside the setback.
Okay.
Because we have struggled to have the ordinances that are in place today to protect a residential environment from these sorts of things. We've been pursuing this for almost 2 years now.
This is more of a farm-like environment, not necessarily a residential environment. No?
It's zoned R200.
Of course. Well, R200.
We are gifted with a beautiful piece of property that we enjoy
With lots of space.
with lots of space, but not intended unless the proper permitting is put in place for these sorts of activities. And it does affect our peace of mind, both inside our property, outside our property, during working hours and after working hours, sometimes as late as night. So our opinion, we still object. There was no communication, and if there was communication, we would have given concrete feedback about what they put forth. You weren't even given the opportunity.
Well, we'll find out what happened to the correspondence.
So, we don't believe that the applicant's request for this variance meets the criteria of the standards for relief. And I regret we have to be here another night. I regret that we didn't sort this out after the first meeting, and I regret it didn't happen after the second meeting. I will also say that we feel so strongly about this. Should you pass it tonight, we are prepared to appeal it within the timely manner and the requirements of an appeal.
Okay.
There are 2 business activities taking place at this residence.
Well, that's not for us, but thank you.
I realize.
Yeah.
We're being diligent about our call.
Well, that's not for us, though. Thank you. Okay, so, Mr. Corey, could you answer some of the concern about the correspondence as to when it was sent and how it was sent?
I did send out correspondence to Matthew Meyer, Tim Meyer, and Henry Meyer, sorry. I sent out an email on May 16th with the site plan attached and a note that explained what we had revised. I didn't hear back from any of them, so I assumed there were no questions. Perhaps I should have sent a hard copy as well.
Okay.
But I did send out the email. I reached out to all of them. I CC'd Amy Saunder and James Meyer, and he received it. So I don't know what happened to the email, but I did send out and reach out.
I'm sorry, when was that?
May 16th. I have a copy of it in my email here.
Okay.
Also, could I just add that if we were to shift the barn south and place it inside the 58-foot setback, we would be approximately 160 feet from the Matthew Meyer dwelling. And in the location it's in right now, it's 200 feet away.
We're ready. Board members, questions relative to things so far?
Yeah, I have a question on the 2 points the previous speaker brought up.
Okay. To ask of the applicant? Or just in general?
I'd like to ask the zoning official.
Okay.
I believe there was a statement that they are operating, or he's got it in writing here, that they are operating a bed and breakfast on the premises. Is that a legal use of the property? Or he says it's a bed and breakfast, but they're saying that they're renting out rooms. Now, I believe boarders may be permitted in a zone. Does that, but I don't think that constitutes a bed and breakfast.
So I was able to verify that there is an ad on Airbnb for the renting of rooms on the property. It's not permitted as a bed and breakfast. So although Airbnb, you could rent out the entire house, the renting of individual rooms as a boarding house is not permitted.
So if they're operating a bed and breakfast, that's illegal use?
It's not that it's illegal. I guess they haven't acquired the special use permit and the proper permitting. Yep, correct.
It's an enforcement problem with that, and also, I believe, with the landscaping. Have you had any notices filed concerning these violations?
These violations specifically, no, but this is something that I'll be following up on.
But you have gone out to the property since those the initial complaints have been made?
I have, correct.
Yeah. Okay. And you didn't view anything that was out of the ordinary or excessive or suggesting a business use at the time?
I mean, I don't want to go too far into it, but some of the complainants' statements seem valid, but without drafting a notice and itemizing it, I'm hesitant to say exactly.
Did you present any violations at that time? Like
No.
You haven't presented anything?
Nope, I have not.
Okay. Mr. Daniels, you had a...
My question was, and I think it was answered, my question was, you do have notice, you have official notice that there is a B&B going on, and you intend to follow up on that?
There's an ad online that could be verified for the advertisement of rentals of rooms within the residence. So using that as verification, but I haven't written a notice up yet, no.
Okay.
Okay. Do you guys have anything to add to that? You okay? And we'll get... State your name and...
James Meyer.
I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Meyer, please.
To keep it simple, there is an Airbnb. There's no bed and breakfast. The rooms for rent that comes up on Google is a Google. My wife years ago was looking to do rental of a house, boarding. Went up on Google, couldn't get it off. Couldn't get it out of the search engine, but there is Airbnb. There's no bed and breakfast, just for the record. And there's no other commercial activity, landscaping or the like, going on the property. There isn't. I don't know what else to tell you. Any commercial activity, my son does landscaping, any commercial activity he does takes place off-site. His equipment is off-site. Unless he's mowing our lawn, then yes, his equipment comes to our house to mow the lawn.
Right. But he stays with you guys, so he might...
Yeah, he lives with us.
Right,
yes.
so he might come home with a vehicle or...
Right. But his equipment ostensibly is kept off-site and continues to be taken off-site. Okay. So... And you're welcome to come down and inspect it anytime you want to, Jamie.
What equipment is on the property or you bring home that is associated with the landscaping business?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
what equipment that you bring home and/or is on the property is associated with the landscaping business?
He has a trailer he uses with his lawnmower in it, weed whacker, that type of thing. It will come out of the property to mow our lawn, or, for instance, he'll going off to firefighting, he'll leave it there and then take it back the next day. That's it.
So there's no backhoes?
Nope.
Or other large equipment or even smaller size equipment associated with the landscaping business that you're going to store on the property?
No, just any equipment we have, lawnmowers, things like that, snow plows. I would like to have a tractor, but not there yet. Stuff like that is for personal use.
Do you use the landscaping business to take care of your own property, the equipment? Do you mow, the mower that you have in landscaping, do you mow your own property with that?
My son mows our property with it. With the lawn mowing the equipment he uses for a business, he will mow our lawn.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple comments. I couldn't find in the ordinance that Airbnb is not permitted in an R200 zone. I don't think there's any reference to Airbnb in our ordinance.
And Mr. Chairman, just to add to that, there is a state law that says municipalities cannot prohibit homeowners from renting their homes on Airbnb. So as long as they're renting out by the house, that would be a permissible use.
Okay, so it's not, so what then makes it a official hotel or Airbnb or bed and breakfast?
Renting by the room.
Renting what?
By room.
By the room.
By the room.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second part of my comment is I cannot find in the use code any restriction for landscaping companies per se in an R200 zone. There are some closely associated things, but I don't think we have anything that does not permit a landscaping business to operate in an R200 zone. I couldn't find anything in the use code.
So, Vice Chair, if the equipment is associated with a business and there's a farm located on the premises, that could be used off-site as well as on-site. But if it's a business, a landscaping business in this case, that's advertising and operating off-premises only, that's something that would not be permitted.
I need to be shown that in the ordinance, because I could not find that landscaping business or landscaping effort in an R200 zone was not permitted. There was no special use required. There was no not approved required. There was no reference to landscaping in the R200 zone.
Or is it just commercial operations?
It's business in general.
It's just business in general, so I don't think they just say, right. So I think it's that distinguishment of what's the difference between the equipment you need to take care of the property versus others.
Can you reference the use code for me? Just so I'm clear.
Give me one moment.
Sure. Do you have anything to add?
No, I was just waiting till the
Oh, okay.
awkward pause.
Thank you. Well, at least this isn't as raucous as the school committee meeting last night, so we're in better shape. What's that? Really? Yeah, it was fun. We'll get to you, so hang on one sec. I just wanted to answer this, and then we'll have you come up. unless we can get back to it. What do you find, Tim? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
So why don't you come on up? Sorry about that. So please just state your name, spell it.
My name is Henry Meyer, related to obviously, so therefore, yes, I so move.
You swear to do the whole thing. Excellent.
I'm not here to object. I'm here to offer a thought or two.
Please.
And hopefully it can be taken in a positive manner as opposed to sort of pinning the tail on the donkey. If you look at this layout, I had spoken to the engineer on the project at the last meeting with the suggestion that instead of using, Windy Meadows Lane as an access point, that you might consider using Trustham Pond Road. Trustham Road.
Just a minute. Yep.
And moving the structure north, staying out of the requisite northern setback. That would mean that equipment coming in would make the turn that much further away from their house, lights, etc. Wouldn't require any more disturbance than what we see now. And you could, instead of having landscape showing on only a linear, you could actually wrap the building with landscaping on the south side, which would also enhance or limit the amount of light and or noise associated with any barn activity. There's always going to be noise. I mean, I'm probably the most guilty one because I'm still the person who takes care of most of the surrounding acreage. And agricultural equipment, landscape equipment, it's noisy in nature. We all know that. That's not rocket science. It's not a secret. Trailers come and trailers go, etc. Maybe salt spreaders, all those things that get used from time to time and are on that property from time to time, not all the time. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but I would like to see a solution. This board has been gracious enough to expend a lot of time on a fairly small project, and I would hope to kind of wrap things up in a positive way. Maybe it's not perfect, but I think a little bit of common sense, and given the amount of landscaping that's gone on sort of south of the so-called existing barn, which used to be cornfield, by the way, which I gave to my brother because he used to help me with farming. Long story short, we'll skip lightly over that. But there's been extensive landscaping just south of that in the area of their house, and obviously the impact of another structure might offset some of the ambience associated with it. But I would think moving it further north, staying out of the northern setback, which I believe is still 58 feet, if I'm correct,
Yeah.
would leave and the turning of traffic or trailers or whatever landscape equipment that goes in and out of that structure would be that much further away, and the turning effect would not, be a straight shot coming in. Instead of coming in, coming this far south, move the structure north, plenty of open space. That would, I would think, ameliorate some of Matthew and Mary Ann's concerns, and a little more landscaping, just shifted slightly, would augment the privacy. So, for what it's worth, if you have any questions.
Yeah. Were you on that email chain? Did you get an email from these guys?
Yes, I got the message.
You did get the email.
I got the correspondence, and it came fairly recently, and I hadn't had much time to digest things. But my conversation with Amy Sonder apparently didn't register, so I'm offering it tonight as a sort of a segue into perhaps a little more reasonable approach to what can be a fairly simple adjustment. The other thing I would say for the record, that the former barn is not germane to this subject. And the property at that time was all owned by one person, so there was no setbacks. And so I would hope in future plans that the former barn sort of goes away, because that's not even germane to the discussion. The discussion for the board is there a hardship, or can we find some sort of middle ground so that all parties can live with it? I call that consensus building. And that's what I would hope will come out of this tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Hang on one sec. Board members, any questions for this witness?
I just want to say, I think what you testified to is certainly reasonable, but this board is not a mediation board.
Right, I understand.
You understand that?
We
have to deal with what we have before us. I wish we could mediate and come to an agreement with parties, but that's not what we do. So I hope you understand.
Well, I understand. I spent a lot of time on the planning board, as Mr. Brown will tell you, and we certainly had our rules and things that we had to stand by. South County Commons being probably the biggest of the bunch. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gorman, do you have an answer?
The closest fit is Use Code 46 as construction services, which would include carpenters, electrical contractors, plumbers, something that is, and again, I can't confirm right now what exactly is taking place as a landscape business, may be accessory to the dwelling rather than something that fits in that use code category.
Right, like where there's just too much equipment to be used on that site, and it's.
What was the code number? I'm sorry.
46.
Thank you.
And I think,
Thank you, Mr. Gorman.
I guess it is a little off track, but since we're discussing it, it's important to keep in mind that if a use isn't specifically listed, then the zoning officer under 30300C either needs to find something that's substantially similar, or if not, it would be prohibited. So it may be that it ends up being 46. It may be it fits in somewhere else better if we have to think of it a little bit more. But I don't think we want to end up in a category where it's prohibited. So we just need to.
No, I think you're just looking for some reference to make sure that there is a place in the ordinance to have it where it's actually stated to be.
Right. I apologize. So the rule is that if it's not specifically listed, it then falls to Jamie to decide if it's substantially similar to a listed use, and then if he decides that it's not, it would end up being prohibited. So the question is, with something like this where it's not specifically listed, landscaping services, what's the best fit for that use? And it's kind of tangential to what was being discussed tonight, but that would be the process.
So you want to come back up? So again, spell your name and spell your name, please.
It's Mary Ann Gaffney, MaryAnnGaffney.
Swear to tell
I swear to tell the truth.
Great. Go for it.
So in everything, in our initial complaints, some of the things have been changed and moved and whatnot. We have plenty of pictures and videos and documentation to substantiate what we said. I've been telling the truth the whole time. There are violations. There's other violations. There's chicken coop practically on the property line. It's supposed to be 40 feet off. There's
well, none of that.
I know, I understand that, but because of those things, my concern is anything that we put in place here, I don't think is going to be enforced if it's not followed, because current other situations that are irrelevant in this situation are not being enforced. And then I also want to point out, I did not receive any of this, or an email, or we have a mailbox right on the property. It would have been perhaps handy if it was put in there. But at the last meeting, I recall, I believe it was Amy Saunders saying that they would do their plantings from the end of where our fence is all the way up to the driveway. And so I don't see that on here. And I recall her saying they would do that. And I also see that, I can't really read it, but my husband said it said something about 8 to 10 feet apart or on center are, I'm not sure if they're trees, or I'm not even sure what they are. That seems pretty far apart. So I'm not sure this landscaping is going to do what we were hoping it would do, just to kind of block lights. And we're also just asking, which I know you guys can't regulate, but, just the common courtesies that have not been extended. You don't have to drive down and point your lights at my house. You can shift it over this way. That's just not what's happened. And I've had plenty of people over at our house that have seen this and said, this would never fly in my neighborhood. But because of where we live and because it is family, I think a lot more goes on that, it just sounds dramatic. But it's our life, and it interrupts our joy and happiness, and so we're just here to try to get the most we can that way. But again, I don't think that things that are put in place will be followed nor enforced. So that's why we're really saying, just keep it as far away as possible. Only because I'm not sure it can work out. I'd like it to.
Okay.
But that's my...
Okay, board members, questions? Anyone? Do you guys have anything to add at this point? Well, I won't close it yet, just because I want to have a discussion, because you did make a good point, Mr. Dennis, about not redesigning it. So, I appreciate your suggestion, Mr. Henry, but I don't know, do we want to sort of go down that path of trying to redesign, or are we just sort of going to keep it as proposed? Unless, we can ask them if they want to move it, if that's going to make a difference for any of us. And if it's not going to make a difference, then we won't ask. So,
just in due respect to Mr. Meyer, I feel like we should ask the applicant if are they standing on this, or are they willing to, and we'll come back for another 2 hours, or hour, or whatever it is. But I think that's a reasonable request. This is an unusual situation here. This is not a simple, straightforward situation.
Okay. So, in that light, I guess we're talking, looks like about 70 feet or so, moving it north.
I know you're not a mediation board, so I'm not trying to bring us into that. But even shifting north to the 58-foot setback at the front, that we could do, and move the driveway in off of Trustham Road. Mm-hmm. But then the neighbors did say that no matter what we get approved over here, they're willing to go ahead and appeal it. So I feel like if we go ahead and do that, and then you appeal it, I don't feel like we've made any progress. If we come back a fourth time and we show you another plan that shows it in that location, have we done enough, I guess is the question.
Well, they always have a right of appeal.
Yes.
I'm certain that either party here is going to go to appeal, no matter what this board does. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't be concerned about that.
Okay.
What we should be concerned about is the board issuing a solid decision.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So potentially you'd be willing to move it north and come off of Trustham Road if there's a greater consensus on that plan? Because we can certainly make the notations. Yeah, sure, we can do that. And did you write down sort of the 58 feet from that front setback? Okay, and then the 28. Oh, you're asking for a 28 on the side, and you're going 30 feet. Okay. And that's diagonal. It's oddly shaped, but okay. Great, thank you. And in doing so, would you, well, the driveway would come off there, but I don't know if the screening then becomes more relevant. I mean, I'm not even sure the screening is relevant even back there anymore, because it wouldn't offer anything, because the building isn't there anymore. So what I'm pointing at is this, the location of the proposed, the revised vegetation on the east side here. If they're going to move the whole building to the north and be set back from Trustham Road, then really there isn't any purpose to this screening anymore. So, I mean, do you want screening there? Is it something that you guys want to have those?
Be removed.
So, I mean, you can, I think we can leave it in there as they choose, or whoever makes the motion can amend it based on the proposed location of the 58 feet, if that's where we plan to go. Okay. Absolutely. Please. Is your mic on? He was about to yell. I can
Yeah, I could
feel it.
feel it coming across the room. But I generally can be heard usually. Okay, so there's nothing there in that area now. It looks like there are a couple of vehicles. This is a photo that was submitted with the original package. So that's just land.
Yes. It's wide open.
And so there might have been some activity there, fixing cars or whatever, but that's gone.
As far as I know, there's nothing there.
Where is the container that you temporarily put the landscape? I think your client said that when you, I don't want to say Mr. Meyer, but you said there was a container where you temporarily store the equipment that comes.
My son's trailer that he has in the back of his truck.
Oh, he just pulls it up. Okay, because I couldn't find any container here.
It would be a truck and a pickup truck and a trailer.
So there's nothing on that land right now?
Nope.
And that would stay that way in your current plans? I mean, could I see did you pass me the drawing?
Yeah.
So this doesn't, still requires a waiver?
It still requires a variance.
Still require a
yes.
variance,
The same side yard setback variance, yes.
But could it go further north?
No, it has to meet the 58-foot setback to the north.
Unless we gave them, well, no, we'd have to probably re-advertise because we're asking for a greater relief than is already being asked.
And from Trustham Road?
Right.
Which would be a waiver for
It just changes it to where we can.
the corner lot, yeah. Because that, I mean, it's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make sure you get this. Okay. Do you guys need to see this? You guys all right? Or you could just hand it right to Jessica and then we'll be official. Okay. I think, unless there's anything else from Ms. Krikorian? We good? Thank you. Okay. So, how do you guys feel about the moving of approximately 70 feet or so to the north? Is that something more reasonable, or is it just the existence of it still is objectionable? Yeah. Yep. So, why don't you come on up and take a look at this and let me know how you guys feel about it. So what they're proposing is the front yard setback is going to stay at the 58, and the side yard would stay the same 30 feet. So they'd be asking for a 28-foot setback on the east side. And entrance would be through Trustham Road. Potentially no landscape. In the photograph, the stuff that was in that corner? Yeah, well, that I think how they use their property after this is sort of up to them. And yes. But it sounded like their intent was to house those things that are now sitting outside. So. Okay. All right. So, if I mean, we're going to make a decision tonight. So, I mean, if you guys don't have any particular input per se as to having it there or not, I think. Okay. All right. No one else behind the podium hiding, right? So if there's no one else, does anybody have any thoughts, any ideas as to what can be? Ms. Walsh, you want to start?
This is just what we discussed among ourselves.
Uh-huh.
I know I would not necessarily vote tonight. I mean, I would aim to look for a better solution.
Okay. You'd say you want to continue it instead of making a decision? Okay.
I don't know about what you have to do to get the double waiver. Like you said,
They have to re-advertise. Well, it sounds like that would be up to them. Like if their solution was to violate in a different way, then they'd have to pull and then resubmit another petition. So would we be considering the current petition? Right. Well, if we're continuing it, we're going to be under these parameters of the 28 feet on the east side and nothing on the north. Whoever makes the motion is the one going to tell us where the building's going to go. So, as long as it's within sort of the setbacks requested. Yep. So, we can make it more. We can make it farther away if we wanted to as well. Mr. Daniels?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the applicant has made every effort here. They came back with a plan. It may be late, but they came back with a plan to the satisfaction of this board that the barn be moved and the landscaping be applied. And they've made a further movement this evening at the suggestion of the gentleman, Mr. Henry Meyer. And I just don't have enough to deny the application. I don't want to continue it. We have what we have before us. I think we've given enough time to both sides. and I would support the variance.
As they proposed?
As the latest,
Mr.
as the latest drawn location proposed by the architect.
You mean the one that was presented?
The current revised, which is what
The
Florian just-
hand drawn revision. Yes. Yes.
number 3.
You know, I think.
We'll spell it out.
And the reason I don't want to continue, because I think no matter what we do here, it's going to go further. So let's just do it.
Any thoughts, Mr.?
Looking at me, right?
Mr. Rosen?
Well, I'm a little disappointed that all the parties couldn't get together. I'm also surprised that one party, that the objector, is telling us they never received the correspondence. It's my understanding that the petition is going to stay as is with 28 feet as the setback. And it doesn't really matter where the barn is moved to from our point of view. Is that correct?
In terms of our variance, no. No. I mean, we can have it along that line, north to south. We can move it next to their house if we didn't go there yet.
Well, I would be in favor of a continuance, but if we're going to vote on it, I will have to sit here and make up my mind, I guess.
Okay.
Mr.
Brown?
Yeah, so the proposal now is to move the structure, keeping it 30 feet from the right-of-way, north, so that it's 58 feet from the Trustham Road property line. I suggested moving it further. They only flipped it half the distance last month. I had proposed moving it. So I would be in favor. I would also still require that the landscaping be installed, just as an additional buffer to any properties to the south.
In the location that they proposed it to be? In that same, just for
No, in the same schematic. Move everything to the north. The landscaping would be the same. Yep. So doing that, there are a couple of barns further south down the road that are very close to the road. If they really didn't like them when they designed the subdivision, they could have moved them or moved the property line so that they were further away, but they didn't. So I think everyone agreed that basically barns probably could be located in that style. So I would vote in favor of the recent design.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I was going to ask, maybe perhaps do you want to give the applicant and maybe the other parties a 10, 15-minute recess if they want to discuss anything?
Okay, and while we do that, is it something that you can sort of write us something up just to make sure we're any?
Sure. Like
it doesn't. I don't think it's very complicated in terms of the evidence presented, or. So just what, when we make the motion, just make sure that we'll cover the bases.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's all just the standard dimensional variance standards, which I know the board is very familiar with.
Right, and it's not particularly any complicated Okay. All right, so we'll take a 10-minute recess, come back around 8:20, 25 or so.
No, I don't want to make. He'll do it. Ron will do it. I mean, on these kinds of things, he'll do it. I could do it, but I don't want to do it. Because I pissed off at all of them. The old man's got the whole thing. And he couldn't sit him down and get him to. Can't do it alone. It's not relevant. There's nothing to do with anything. I don't think we can make a finding that there's a landscaping business, number one, and I don't think we're charged with that. I mean, he's the guy that's going to figure that out. And when they complain to him, he'll figure it out. Airbnb is fine. Nothing. Well, we have testimony. We have the testimonies. One testimony that he. We get sworn testimony. They don't. I mean, I don't think we have enough. I don't think we can put a restriction to say you can't operate a landscape. I don't necessarily agree with, well, that's his decision. I couldn't find a specific reference that prevents a person from having a landscaping business in an R200 zone. It's not an R20 zone. Of course, and they park them in their yard. I know. Every other. I mean, they all have a truck and a stand-up mower and a zero-turn mower and a trailer. You know, I mean, they don't rent commercial space. These guys, they're hand to mouth. Yeah, a lot of roads. I know.
Mr. Chairman, would you like a little cup of water? Would you like some water, Mr. Rosen? I'm going to go get over the glass. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, for your cough. Oh, I'm sorry.
Not yet. Not yet, he says.
I think I have.
Not yet.
You're vaccinated.
Yeah,
You're
5
boosted.
times.
Only 4 is allowed. Only 4. So what happened to the school committee? What was the big beef over the superintendent's lawsuit?
No. They were eliminating.
Oh, the dual language.
Dual language, and then library, and then
Usually it's an area that gets cut. It's a shame. It's a shame. They can't find some other crappy position to get rid of? I mean, really?
he even
Anything to
Okay, it's 8:20. Meeting come back to order. Do we have anything different, or are we where we were? Okay. Okay. Is that Mr. Gorman? Is that sort of what you expected? Is that good? Clear enough? As long as we describe it as that. Okay. So, board members, any other discussion? No? Yes. Yep. Okay. So, oh, you got that one too. Yeah, I'll probably need that. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the petition of James Meyer and Maureen Rooney of 836B Matunic Schoolhouse Road in Wakefield, Rhode Island. This petition, I think this is the second meeting we've had with this meeting, or with this petition. It's of a barn to be constructed on an R200 zone area. This is a property which has two frontage. So there is the 58-foot setback required on the two sides of the property on the Windy Meadows Lane and Trustham Road. The following folks spoke for the applicant, Matthew Meyer and Mary Gaffney. Primarily, we had Ms. Krikorian, who did the design work, present several variations, and we have this variation that is from the most recent 5/16/2022 from Amy Sonder site plan, but this is no longer the 5/16. We're going to make this a new exhibit of today's date, 5/25, where Ms. Krikorian sketched the new location. We have, trying to think of, all right, so we have also at the meeting were the neighbors of Matthew Meyer and Mary Gaffney that have voiced their concerns about activities on the property relative to this barn, as well as previous activities of concerns that there would be a disturbance relative to the first proposed location, which was only 20 feet from the east property line. And subsequent to their concerns, the building was moved several times to the current location. Also, Henry Meyer spoke, who proposed what has become the most recent version. And Mr. Henry Meyer has been a part of the property for some time and also familiar with how the property has evolved and uses and currently uses adjacent properties with various farm equipment and otherwise other equipment relative to maintaining some of the larger mass land areas, farms that are surrounding there. So we have for records, we have what was read into the record initially in terms of submittals, as well as this most recent on the 5/16/2022. And this submittal of the plan is going to be what we're voting on tonight. So the most recent plan is going to have the building located 58 feet from the north Trustham Road property line and 30 feet from the eastern Windy Meadows Lane side. And since we're moving the building up, I don't know, 70, 80 feet or so, we're going to request that the proposed evergreen screening that was on the 5/16 plan, there were 8 trees, evergreen screenings, 8 to 10 feet on center, and maintaining a 5 to 8 foot height. Those 8 trees will be moving forward, moving north with the barn in the same location as the 5/16 proposal, meaning that the first tree is planted right around that northeast corner of the barn. The board finds that the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is not due to the unique, The board finds that the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure and not to the general characteristics of the surrounding area. And it's not due to any physical or economic disability of the applicant, accepting those physical disabilities, which there are none. But the reason we find that this is unique is that we do have Trustham Road, which is the main egress road, and then we have Windy Meadows Lane, which is a private road, and Windy Meadows Lane is not the primary side yard or not primary frontage, but it is on our zoning map. It is considered a road, so they are required to have 58 feet. So for that, it's unique. Also, that the surrounding area, this is in context with it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The board finds that the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire of the applicant to realize greater financial gain. They don't currently have a barn of this size to house equipment. They obviously have a need for equipment relative to the size of the property and the various equipment they have. So there really isn't anything that they had done that this would benefit them in any financial way. The board finds that the granting of the requested variance will not alter the general characteristic of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan upon which the ordinance is based. And this is because this is an R200 zone. This was once a rather large farm where there are currently some historic barns still dotting the landscape. There's locations of where, certainly there are many locations where there were other structures. But it is not uncommon to have a barn adjacent to a road or easy egress to get to a road. You certainly wouldn't have a barn in the middle of a field. You want to have some easy way to get to that barn, especially with New England weather the way it is. So this will fit in the general character. We find that this is the least relief necessary because it's reasonable because they're doing it's 30 feet, which is what it would already be more if this were not considered a front, but it is considered a front, but it's reasonable considering that they sort of have left some good space between the road and the side, but also have not crowded their existing lawn too much. The board finds that the hardship suffered by the owner of the subject property of dimensional variance is not granted, amounts to a more than a mere inconvenience, and that's because I think if this barn were put within the setbacks, it would really be inconsistent with the area, and it would be inconsistent with the property, just by the locations of other outbuildings, not just this property, but others. This is approved with the following conditions: that they will have screening on the east, that they are 58 feet from Trustham Pond Road on the north, and that they are 30 feet from the east, Windy Meadows Lane. And the driveway is going to be coming from Trustham Road. I really don't see in this location any need for any lighting restrictions because it seems to be isolated enough that there shouldn't be any concern. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve. It's a short one. Could I get a second? Second, Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Did I get it?
We include dark sky lighting on the exterior of the building.
I deliberately said no only because it moved 70 feet or so, but it's up to you. I think if you feel, if the board feels that at least the east elevation and south maybe to have something that's a little more respectful of neighbors, we can certainly do that. He was asking lighting, yeah, to say should there
exterior.
No, you can shine a light any way you want. I think for newer stuff, for new builds or parking lots and things like that, you have to be dark sky compliant. But I don't believe on a residential.
Do what?
You feel like that? Anyone feel like that should be in there? Concerns about that?
Well, I would say on the back side if they have lights.
On the south?
The way it was discussed, the lighting was not on, the primary lighting wasn't on the south side. It was on the north and the east. And maybe on the east side, but I think with the trees and the fact that it's further north.
Right.
And I would assume that they would do the proper thing when it's actually built. But, so I don't see it as a requirement.
You don't think we should?
I don't know.
Do you think we should? No?
It's up to the board, yeah, I would like to see it, but it's up to the board.
I mean, because they could easily have something on their house that's even closer, you know. So I just feel like that's kind of more of a nitpick.
Well, now that the south is, the side that's facing the neighbors
It's way up.
is pretty far. Yeah.
So I'll keep my motion as it is. Any other discussion? No? Hearing none? Mr. Cagnetta? Aye. Mr. Daniels? Aye. Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
Mr. Rosen?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
All in favor was aye. 5. Motion passes. Good luck. You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Henry, I'll call you Mr. Henry. If I said Mr. Myers, or it would. Anything else we have to cover tonight? Nope. So we're all going to be here next month? Barring me forgetting something else? Thank you. June 15th. Interesting. I didn't have it, so that's good. Okay. I think. See, that's interesting because I have it for the 22nd, so I must be off a week going forward now. Well, I'm going to say no. Yeah, no. Is that why? Probably won't help. Texting me smoke signals. I had another question. No. So moved. All in favor? Aye.